right, turning now to Russia's war in Ukraine. Two Russian special service agents have been killed after they were suspected of assassinating a senior Ukrainian intelligence officer. That's according to Ukraine's main security service. I want to go now to CNN's Nada Bashir in London. Nada, what are you learning?
Well, we've been getting updates, Frederica, from the Ukrainian security service. As you mentioned, this all comes after the killing of a Ukrainian security service officer earlier this week. He was shot dead on Thursday morning in Kyiv in what authorities in Ukraine have described as a suspected assassination. Now, the Ukrainian security service has said that it has killed two Russian security operatives who they believe and suspect to have carried out that suspected assassination on Thursday. And there has been a statement from the head of the Ukrainian security service. I'll just read you a bit from that statement saying, as a result of covert investigative and active counterintelligence measures, the enemy's lair was discovered. According to this statement, the pair resisted arrest and there was an exchange of fire before they were killed. And of course, this all comes as we continue to see Russia ramping up its military offensive and aerial attacks on Ukraine. Just over the course of this weekend, we have seen the second largest round of aerial attacks, according to Ukrainian authorities, carried out since the beginning of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We have seen the impact of that, of course, in civilian areas as well. And of course, what we're also hearing parallel to all of this is a note of frustration and disappointment now coming directly from US President Donald Trump towards the Russian President Vladimir Putin around Russia's actions in Ukraine. Of course, we are expecting to see Trump's envoy for Russia, Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, traveling to Ukraine this weekend, expecting to hear a statement from Trump on Russia as early as tomorrow. Frederica.
All right, Nada Bashir in London. Thank you so much. All right, I want to discuss more now with former CIA analyst David Geo. He is also a professor of intelligence and international security at King's College in London. David, great to see you. So what's your reaction to this news?
Well, I think Nada's report goes to show you that there's actually a war within the war in Ukraine, right? There's the war that we see, the conventional war, the awful war, Putin's war on innocent Ukrainians, of course. But there's a war of sabotage, a war of assassination, a war of cyber attacks, a war of subversion, a war of disinformation. And that's an important angle for us to keep an eye on as we assess Russia's continued war on Ukraine.
President Trump says he is going to make what he calls, a major statement on Russia. And that would be as early as tomorrow. And lately, Trump has been escalating his criticism of Russian President Vladimir Putin, someone he once spoke rather highly of and even touted that he knew him well. So what do you read into this shift in tone?
Well, it seems that President Trump has finally lost patience with President Putin. And I certainly hope that's the case. President Trump said early on that he suspected President Putin was tapping him along, certainly stringing out the president's various offers to try to bring a ceasefire. And I think now, as the president has said himself, Putin says nice things, but it's all a bunch of nonsense and it's meaningless. And Putin is a dictator who only understands force. And so it's very heartening to hear that the president hopefully will unleash some much needed volume and capability of weapons for Ukraine. And I'm hoping that we'll see that announcement tomorrow, along with perhaps a tightening of sanctions here in the near future as well.
Okay. And then this week, Trump is also set to meet with NATO's Secretary General after saying the U.S. would be willing to supply weapons to Ukraine through NATO allies. Do you think this causes Putin to rethink his calculus on Ukraine at all? Does it impact him in any way?
It'll impact him once the weapons start impacting Russian territory. Once the Ukrainians have the ability to bring the fighting to Russia in real and sustained ways, Putin will have questions to answer to his own people about how the so-called special military operation is now in its third year, and it was supposed to take 3 days. So hopefully we'll really see some force delivered, not only with defensive weapons, but also with offensive weapons. You know, as one astute commentator said, every weapon given to Ukraine is a defensive weapon because they're fighting a defensive war. And it seems that President Trump has now seen that's what Putin is going to listen to. And hopefully Putin is on borrowed time. Will the president all of a sudden change his mind, as we've seen in the past? You certainly can't count it out. But he's been teasing something big coming, and he does seem to be committed to it. And as an observer of this war, and I hope that's true.
Okay, and before I let you go, I want to ask you about your new piece in Foreign Affairs magazine, where you argue that Trump is breaking American intelligence by politicizing it. What do you see the dangers as being?
Right. Well, there's two foundational building blocks to the argument that General Hayden and I wanted to make. And I should note, it didn't give us any particular pleasure to write the piece. But as intelligence officers, sort of trained and inculcated in that tradition, we see a weakness in U.S. national security, and we just felt a sort of professional compunction to write the piece. And so it really rests on a few pillars. The first one is that good intelligence is the sine qua non of good statecraft. It's critical for national security and for America to work and operate in a complex world. The second part is that the U.S. national intelligence community is the envy of the entire world, not just its resources and not just its capabilities, but the apolitical nature of the U.S. intelligence community is something that's really hard. Those norms are really hard to create. And if you look around the world, most countries don't enjoy an apolitical intelligence community. And yet we've seen President Trump take specific actions vis-a-vis the U.S. intelligence community, from ignoring intelligence, from sidelining it, from casting dispersions on those who might disagree with his public statements. And so over time, this erodes not only norms, but it also erodes capabilities, because it's sending us in various directions that General Hayden and I don't think are particularly wise. Just to give you a couple of examples. The first one is doing a full court press in the FBI on immigration. And certainly cracking down on violent crime is a wonderful goal. But the FBI has a whole panoply of threats that it has to manage. And so it can't go entirely toward any one single resource, right? There's still counterintelligence, there's counterterrorism, there's cyber operations, on and on. Second of all, we saw the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, decide that she wanted to have a collection emphasis on Greenland. Which is, of course, the sovereign territory of a NATO ally, Denmark. And so what we argue is that wasting time running around, sort of doing performative intelligence theater is actually taking our eye off the ball. It's keeping us weak. And then, of course, when you add into this various reductions in force, firings, and firings for reasons that I think are totally unclear to those who are still serving. And there's this sort of chilling effect, right? Because they can't figure out, am I going to get fired for making a hard for a hard analytical call for political reasons? Am I going to get in trouble for giving the president information that he doesn't want to hear, but that he needs to know?
Yeah, undermines the entire objective. David Geo,
It does.
thank you so much. Really appreciate having you.
Thank you.